What money? That was rent. My father said it with a grin. 5 years, $150,000 gone. He sat at the kitchen table with his coffee like he'd just read me the weather forecast. My mother wouldn't look at me. She stirred her coffee. Clink, clink, clink. Like that spoon was the most fascinating thing in the room. They promised me every single dollar above my basic keep was going into a savings account. They showed me screenshots of a balance. They told me, keep going, honey. You're almost at your down payment. And the whole time they were spending it on what I didn't know yet. But when I found out, I stopped asking questions. I wiped my tears, and I started saving evidence. This is a story about a folder, a desperate family secret, and what happened when I opened that folder at Christmas dinner in front of 25 people. Before I go on, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. And while you're at it, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. My name is Chloe. I'm 27. I work in an orthodontic lab in a small town in Ohio. I spend my days covered in fine white plaster dust, pouring molds, bending wire, and making sure other people's smiles are perfect. It's exact, meticulous work where a millimeter of error means starting over. I like things that are exact. I like things that make sense. Now let me take you back 5 years to the week I moved home after college graduation. The cardboard box bites into my fingers. It's my last load of college things, heavy with textbooks and desk lamps. I push the front door open with my hip, expecting the usual sounds of home, the TV murmuring in the den, water running in the sink, Dad's heavy boots dropping in the hallway. Instead, there is only a thick, waiting silence. I walk into the kitchen and stop. My parents are waiting at the table. They aren't sitting casually. They are positioned. Dad sits rigid at the head, his large, calloused hands folded flat on the scratched oak wood. Mom sits to his right, her back unnaturally straight. 3 mugs of black coffee steam in the center of the table. One sits directly in front of the empty chair facing them. My stomach drops, just a fraction. My parents never pour coffee for me. Sit down, sweetheart, Mom says. Her voice is a little too high, a little too tight. She forces a smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. Dad and I have been talking. I lower the box to the floor. The thud echoes like a drumbeat in the quiet room. I'm 21. I just shook a dean's hand and walked off a stage with a degree in applied sciences. Starting Tuesday, I have a job at the dental lab 18 minutes away, making $75,000 a year before taxes. It is real solid money for my age. I slide into the wooden chair. The ceramic coffee mug is warm against my cold fingers, but I don't drink. Dad clears his throat, a wet, gravelly sound. He locks his eyes on mine. It is the absolute, heavy stare of a man who owns the roof over my head and wants to make sure I know it. Here is the deal, Dad says. His words are measured, overly rehearsed. You live here. You pay us $2,500 a month. I blink. The number hangs in the stale kitchen air. $2,500. Before I can react, Dad raises a thick finger. But Chloe, listen to me. This isn't rent. We are putting every single penny of that into a high-yield savings account. In your name. You stay here for 5 years. You live under our rules. And when you're ready, you've got a massive down payment. You're buying a house in cash before any of your friends even figure out how a mortgage works. I do the math in my head. I always do the math. $30,000 a year. My friends are signing leases on cramped apartments for $1,800 a month, throwing their paychecks into a landlord's pocket and getting nothing back. This is different. This is exact. This is a safety net built just for me. It's the smart move, Mom adds quickly. She reaches across the table and grabs my wrist. Her fingers are icy, squeezing a little too hard. Her eyes are wide, glassy, and full of what looks like fierce maternal pride. We're doing this for you, honey. We want to give you the head start we never had. I look at her perfect, smiling teeth. I look at Dad's firm, nodding head. I say yes before I even take a sip of the bitter coffee. That night, the old house settles. The floorboards groan as the Ohio air grows cold. I am in my childhood bedroom, unpacking sweaters in the dark. The walls in this house are paper thin. Through the drywall, I hear them moving in the master bedroom. Their voices are muffled, but the extreme quiet of the house amplifies the sound. This solves everything, Robert, Mom whispers. The relief in her voice isn't just happy, it is heavy, desperate. I pause with a sweater in my hands and smile into the shadows. I think she means having her daughter home. I think she means the family is together. She doesn't. I won't learn the cold, brutal reality of what everything really means until the trap is already sprung. Let me tell you what paying $2,500 a month actually looks like, even when you make $75,000 a year. At the lab, I work with exact measurements. I mix stone and plaster. I know that if a dental mold is off by a single millimeter, the whole thing falls apart. I try to apply that same exactness to my life. After taxes, health insurance, and retirement contributions, my actual take-home pay is roughly $4,500 a month. The second that direct deposit hits my bank account, I open my app. I type in $2,500. I press transfer. I watch the money leave my account and drop straight into my dad's checking account. Just like that, more than half my labor vanishes. I am left with $2,000. Out of that $2,000, I pay my car insurance, the gas to commute to the lab, my phone bill, and my student loan minimums. And then comes the kicker. It happens in month 2. I walk into the kitchen after a long shift. My hands ache from bending wire. Mom is wiping down the granite counter. She isn't just cleaning, she is scrubbing the same spotless spot in rapid, tight circles. "Chloe," she says, not looking up at first. "Since you aren't paying for electricity or water, Dad and I think it's only fair that you cover the groceries, to cook dinners for the family. It's the least you could do, considering what we're setting up for you." I freeze by the refrigerator. "All the groceries? For everyone?" Mom stops scrubbing. She turns to me. Her smile is perfectly polite, but her eyes are hard and glassy. "You're an adult now, sweetie. Adults contribute to the household. We are sacrificing a lot to house you and manage your fund. We thought you'd want to help." The way she says help makes me feel instantly guilty, like I am being greedy. I swallow the lump in my throat. "Okay, yes, I'll buy the groceries." Every Sunday, I walk the long bright aisles of the Megamart. The fluorescent lights hum above me. I keep the calculator app open on my phone, watching every single penny. I bypass the fresh produce and reach for the generic brand pasta. I buy bulk chicken thighs instead of breasts. I pick the cheapest frozen vegetables I can find. My stomach rumbles, but I ignore it. The Ohio winter hits hard that year, and the cold doesn't care about my 5-year plan. I drive a 2016 Toyota Corolla. The dashboard is cracked right down the middle. The heater rattles like loose teeth, barely blowing warm air. The passenger window is stuck, it only rolls up 2/3 of the way. When I drive on the highway, the freezing wind howls through that 1-inch gap. I wear my winter coat, gloves, and a scarf just to commute to work. My breath plumes in the cold cabin. At the lab, my coworkers pack up around noon. "We're going to that new sandwich place on Highway 4. My coworker Jessica says, zipping her jacket. "You coming, Chloe?" I look at the menu on her phone. $15 for a panini. I think about the calculator app in the grocery store. "No thanks," I say, forcing a bright smile. I brought lunch. I sit alone in the quiet break room. The plaster dust settles on my dark scrubs. I open a plastic container and eat cold, leftover chicken and rice at my desk. Jessica comes back an hour later, smelling like warm melted cheese and toasted bread. She watches me scrape the bottom of my plastic container. She frowns, a look of genuine pity crossing her face. "Chloe, why don't you just get your own place?" Jessica asks softly, leaning against the doorframe. "With what you make, you could have a nice warm 1-bedroom downtown. You don't have to live like this." I look up at her. I don't feel ashamed. In fact, I feel a strange, fierce pride. "I have a plan," I tell her, my voice steady. "It's going to be worth it." And I believe that completely. I am not suffering in silence. I am building an empire. I am investing. Every time I shiver in my broken car, every time I skip a hot lunch, I am one step closer to a front door with my own name on the deed. I am trading my present comfort for an unshakable future. But exactness is a hard habit to break. Around month 10, the quiet, logical part of my brain needs proof. I am washing dishes after dinner. Mom is drying. The kitchen is warm, smelling of the cheap chicken I cooked. "Mom," I ask casually, keeping my voice light, "can I see the savings account? I just want to add the exact balance to my budget spreadsheet, to track my net worth." The dish towel in Mom's hand stops moving. It is just a split second, a tiny unnatural pause in her rhythm. Then she goes back to wiping the plate, her movements a little faster than before. "Of course," she says smoothly, without missing a beat. "I'll send you a screenshot tonight." I wait in my room. The house is silent except for the wind rattling my bedroom window. At 8:35 p.m., my phone buzzes on the nightstand. The screen glares in the dark. It is a text from Mom, a screenshot. I open it. It is a stark white background with one line of black text typed across it. $25,000. There is no bank logo. There is no account number. There isn't even a timestamp. It is just a typed number on a cropped white screen. I stare at it. A tiny cold prickle of unease touches the back of my neck. Why is it cropped so tight? I wonder. But then I quickly push the thought away. It's a high-yield joint account, I tell myself. They probably crop it to hide their own banking details. It makes sense. $25,000. 10 months times $2,500. The math checks out perfectly. Exact. I let out a long breath, and the tightness in my chest loosens. The freezing car rides, the cheap pasta, the skipped lunches, it is all worth it. I am doing this right. I save the screenshot to my phone. I don't save it because I am suspicious. Not yet. I save it because I am proud. My brother Jason is 4 years older than me. He is an HVAC technician. He married his high school girlfriend Emily at 23, and they have a 2-year-old daughter named Mia. Mia has a head of wild red curls and laughs at everything. I love her. I love them. But looking at Jason has always been like looking through a warped window. The rules are different on his side of the glass. Jason lived in this house until he was 24, 3 full years after high school. He never paid a single dollar of rent. Not once. He never bought the bulk chicken thighs. He never handed over the grocery receipts. And he certainly never watched $2,500 drain from his bank account on the 1st of every month. I bring this up at Sunday dinner. I don't plan to. It just slips out while I am passing the bowl of cheap starchy potatoes I bought with my shrinking paycheck. I am not angry when I ask. I am just a person who works with exact measurements, looking at a set of numbers that do not balance. Dad, I say, keeping my voice level and calm. When Jason lived here, did he pay into a savings fund like I am? The dining room goes dead silent. Dad is mid-bite. He stops. He lowers his fork to his porcelain plate. Clink. The sound is sharp and heavy in the quiet room. He doesn't look at me like a father looking at a daughter. He looks at me like a foreman who just caught a worker stealing tools. His jaw tightens, the muscles flexing under his skin. Jason had different circumstances, Dad says. His voice drops an octave, grating and defensive. He was starting a family. He was saving for a wedding. I put the serving spoon down. I'm saving for a house. I'm building a foundation. That's different. How? Dad challenges. He leans forward, his broad shoulders casting a shadow over his half-empty plate. The word is a wall. He isn't asking for my reasoning. He is daring me to argue. Before I can open my mouth, Mom cuts in. Her wooden chair scrapes loudly against the floorboards. Don't compare yourself to your brother Chloe, she says. I look at her. Her voice isn't just sharp. It has a sudden breathless edge to it. Panic. It is a tiny micro-expression of absolute terror that flashes across her eyes before she forces it down. Her eyes dart to Dad for a fraction of a second, checking his temper, before locking onto me. This is about your future. You're doing something remarkable. Please just eat. I let it go. I look down at my plate. I always let it go. It is easier to mix my plaster, keep my head down, and trust the plan. Near the end of year 2, the plan seems to be working for everyone. Jason and Emily come over for dinner to celebrate. They just closed on a house. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a half-acre lot in the newer subdivision off Maple Drive. They show us the listing on Emily's phone. The price is right there at the top, $325,000. It is a beautiful place, vaulted ceilings, hardwood floors. It is also completely impossibly out of a young HVAC tech starter budget. At the table Jason grins, swirling a beer in his hand. He is practically glowing. We really lucked out, he announces to the table. We put down 20%, $65,000 down payment, cash. The table erupts in congratulations. Dad stands up, his chair pushing back with a loud screech. He puffs his chest out, his face flushed with extreme pride. He walks over and claps hard on the shoulder. That's my boy, Dad booms, his voice filling the room. A real homeowner, building wealth, doing it right. I smile. I clap my hands together. I say all the right supportive things. I pull little Mia onto my lap and gently feed her a spoonful of mashed potatoes. I play the part of the happy younger sister perfectly. But later that evening, I am in my freezing car, driving to the pharmacy for Mom's headache medicine. It is a dark, bitter Ohio night. The streetlights flash rhythmically across my cracked dashboard. The broken window lets in a steady, icy knife of wind. As the cold air hits my face, the numbers start spinning in my head. I can't stop them. It is what my brain does. It sorts. It measures. It calculates. Jason makes decent money. Sure. But Emily only works part-time at a local daycare center. They just had a baby. They had a huge wedding 2 years ago that they were still paying off. They have 2 new car payments. Where does a 26-year-old with that much debt get $65,000 in liquid cash? I grip the freezing steering wheel. The tires hum against the dark asphalt. I think about my own spreadsheet. At $2,500 a month. For 24 months. By the end of year 2, I have transferred exactly $60,000 into my parents' account. $60,000. The 2 numbers float in the dark cabin of my car, glowing in my mind. They are too close. The margin of error is too small. A low, sickening hum starts vibrating in my chest. It is a deep, paranoid thought creeping in from the darkest corner of my brain. No, I tell myself, my breath pluming in the cold air. No, that is crazy. They are my parents. I bury the thought deep down. I shove it under the floorboards of my mind and lock the door. Because the alternative, the idea that my parents are taking the money I freeze and starve for, and handing it to my brother so Dad can play the proud patriarch, would completely destroy the world as I know it. I turn the radio up to drown out the silence. But the math is already done, and numbers never lie. Years 3 and 4 pass. I put my head down. I become a machine. At the lab I mix the plaster. I pour the molds. I bend the wire. At home I freeze in my car. I buy the generic groceries. On the 1st of every month, I press the transfer button. By the middle of year 4, the number in my spreadsheet is massive. I have paid $135,000 total. I am 25 years old, and I believe I am standing on a mountain of my own making. Then comes year 4, month 6. A Tuesday in June. The heat outside is thick and heavy, but inside the clinic, a main water pipe bursts behind the drywall. Water floods the sterile white tiles, ruining our molds. We are sent home at 2 p.m. I pull into my driveway just before 3. The neighborhood is completely still. Dad's work truck is gone, but Mom's sedan is parked in its usual spot. I walk up to the front door, my rubber-soled work shoes squeaking faintly on the concrete. I unlock the door and step inside. The air conditioning is humming softly. The house has that heavy, hollow quiet of a place that thinks it is empty. Instinctively, I don't call out. I walk into the kitchen and gently place my keys on the granite island. The stone is cool under my fingertips. Through the dining room I see the sliding glass door leading to the backyard patio. It is open about 5 inches to let the summer breeze inside. I smell cut grass and warm concrete. Then I hear her. Mom is sitting in a patio chair. Her back is to the glass door. She has her phone pressed hard to her ear. I watch her reach up and pinch the bridge of her nose, a gesture of deep, exhausting stress. I know it's tight, Martha, Mom is saying. Her voice is low, raspy, and stripped of the bright fake cheer she uses with me. But we just need to stretch it another 6 months. Chloe will finish out her 5-year plan by Christmas. That's another $15,000. It'll cover the rest of the supply debts. My hand freezes on the countertop. My fingers curl into the cold granite. Supply debts. A voice on the other end of the phone, tinny and sharp through the speaker, says something I can't quite make out. It is Aunt Martha, Mom's older sister. Martha is a retired county auditor. She is a woman who spent 40 years looking for missing money. Mom sighs. It is a heavy, ragged sound. Martha, we had no choice. You know how close Robert was to losing the roofing business back in year 2. We were drowning. I stop breathing. My chest goes entirely tight. Year 2. Mom's voice drops to a harsh whisper, but the summer air carries every single word through the open gap in the glass. When Jason found that house, he had nothing, but he needed $65,000, so we took Chloe's $60,000. Robert took out a $5,000 high-interest bridge loan to make up the exact difference, and we handed it to Jason. We paid off the loan with Chloe's next few months of payments. A ringing sound starts in my ears. The kitchen around me seems to tilt, just a fraction. The math I did in my freezing car 2 years ago crashes down on me. The missing puzzle piece snaps into place with a violent, terrifying clarity. The bridge loan. That was the extra $5,000. That is how the numbers matched perfectly. Mom is still talking, her words spilling out in a desperate rush. It saved Jason's pride. He gets to be the man of the house. And since then, her money has been paying the roofing company's bills. It's keeping us afloat, Martha. Aunt Martha's voice cuts through the speaker, louder this time. Sharp and biting. Susan, that's not right. That is fraud. You told her it was a savings account. That girl is starving herself for that money. She drives a car with a broken window in the dead of winter. It will be a savings account eventually. Mom snaps back. Her voice trembles. She sounds like a cornered animal. When Robert's business picks up, we'll take out a second mortgage on the house and pay her back. Just don't say anything. Please, Martha. She'll get it back. Someday. Someday. I do not move. I do not make a sound. I stand completely paralyzed in the shadow of the kitchen. The hum of the refrigerator sounds like a roaring engine in my ears. They didn't save it. They didn't invest it. The screenshots were lies. The pride in Dad's eyes at dinner was a performance. My brother's beautiful house, his vaulted ceilings, his warm floors. They bought it with my blood. They built his life out of my freezing winter drives, my skipped lunches, and my bulk pasta. I am not a daughter building a future. I am a machine. I am an ATM, keeping a sinking ship afloat, and they are draining me dry while smiling to my face. A coldness spreads through my chest, chasing away the shock. The ringing in my ears stops. Every millimeter of my world has just been destroyed, but my brain, the part of me that measures, tracks, and calculates, turns to absolute ice. I back away from the kitchen island. One slow step, then another. I know the exact layout of the floorboards in this old house. I know which ones creak and which ones stay silent. I glide over the silent ones, ghosting past the framed family photos in the hallway. Pictures of Jason holding little Mia. Pictures of Dad standing proudly next to his work truck. Lies framed in cheap wood. I reach my bedroom and close the door. The latch clicks, a tiny sharp sound that feels like a starting gun. I slide down the wall until I hit the floor. I pull my knees to my chest, press my face into my arms, and I shake. I don't scream, but a silent, violent sob tears through my throat, burning like acid. I think of my cracked dashboard. I think of the generic, tasteless pasta. I think of Jessica eating her warm sandwich while I scraped the bottom of my plastic container. Every single sacrifice. Dad bought his golden boy a house with my blood, and Mom balanced the books. I sit in the dark corner for an hour, letting the reality shatter the past 4.5 years. And then, the tears just stop. At the lab, when a heavy plaster mold drops and shatters on the tile, you don't sit there and cry over the dust. You sweep it up. You calculate the millimeter of error. You mix a harder, sharper compound, and you start over. The grief inside my chest burns away, leaving behind a cold, clinical rage. It is a rage that needs order. A rage that needs a blueprint. I reach into my pocket and pull out my phone. My hands have stopped shaking. I take a screenshot of the home screen. Tuesday, June 14th, 3:15 p.m. The exact time of death for my family. I wait until midnight. The house is completely dark. I lock my bedroom door and sit cross-legged on my bed. I open my laptop. The screen casts a pale blue glow across my face. I open the calculator app. 4.5 years paid. $135,000. Gone. My initial feral instinct is to pack a single bag, walk out the front door and never speak to them again. But my analytical brain takes over. I run the scenarios. If I walk into the kitchen tomorrow and confront them, they will deny it. Mom will cry. Dad will get loud and puff his chest out. They will say I misheard Aunt Martha. They might even panic and delete their texts, wipe their emails, and claim those screenshots of the balances were just estimates. It will be my word against theirs. I will walk away with $0, zero legal standing, and a bitter story nobody in this town will believe. But if I stay, if I keep paying for just a few more months to hit the magical 5-year mark they set, I can make them keep talking. Every text, every email, every voicemail becomes a line in a ledger they don't know I am keeping. I open Google Drive. I create a new, password-protected folder. I name it Home Fun Docs. The house settles around me. The wind rattles the loose pane in my window. Every time a pipe groans, or the floorboards shift outside my door, my heart spikes. But I don't stop typing. I spend 6 hours hunting through 4.5 years of digital history. Every message where Mom mentions your savings. Screenshot. Upload. Every email where Dad says the account. Screenshot. Upload. The fake, tightly cropped balance screenshots. Upload. By 4 a.m. my eyes are burning, but I have 32 items. 32 pieces of undeniable concrete proof. I close the laptop. I walk into the bathroom and brush my teeth in the dark. I look at myself in the mirror. The girl who wanted to make her parents proud is gone. My eyes look flat and dark. My jaw is locked tight. I realize I am not staying because I am a victim. I am staying because I am building a trap, and I need them to walk all the way to the center of it. The next morning, the kitchen smells like dark roast coffee and toasted bread. Dad is reading the news on his tablet. Mom is wiping down the counter. I walk in. My heart is a steady, slow metronome. I pull my checkbook from my bag. I tear off the $2,500 check. "Here you go, Mom," I say. My voice is perfectly smooth. She turns around and takes it. Her fingers brush mine. She smiles, that bright maternal mask slipping right back into place over her tired face. "Thank you, sweetheart," she says softly. "It's growing so fast. You're doing so well." I smile back. I look directly into her eyes. "I know it is, Mom." She turns back to the counter. She has absolutely no idea she just deposited evidence. Over the next 5 months, I become a ghost haunting my own life. At the lab, I work with plaster. You pour it liquid, let it set, and when it hardens, you crack the mold to reveal the exact unchangeable shape inside. That is what I am doing to my parents. I am pouring the trap, and I am waiting for it to set. I am incredibly careful. I never ask questions in the kitchen. I never ask where the answer can just disappear into the air. If it isn't in writing, it doesn't exist. 2 weeks after the patio discovery, I sit in the break room at work. I pull out my phone. My thumb hovers over the screen. I type a message to Mom, keeping the tone light, almost naive. "Hey Mom, just checking. The savings account is still at the same bank, right? I want to include the exact routing info in my budget spreadsheet." I hit send. I wait. The break room clock ticks. 1 minute. 2 minutes. Then the 3 little gray dots appear on my screen. They dance for a long time. She is thinking. She is calculating. Finally the bubble pops up. "Yes, honey. Everything's growing nicely. Dad and I are so proud of how responsible you are. Don't worry about the routing info right now. The bank restricts third-party views on high-yield joint accounts. We've got it handled." I read the lie. I take a screenshot. I upload it to the secure folder. A month later, the weather starts to turn cold again. I email Dad. He checks his email for his roofing business every night at 7 p.m. at the kitchen table. I wait until 7:15 p.m. to send my message from my bedroom directly above him. "Dad, since we're coming up on the 5-year mark this November, when do you think I'll be able to access the $150,000 savings? I'm starting to browse house listings." I sit on the edge of my bed. I hear his heavy wooden chair creak downstairs. I hold my breath. Will he march upstairs and yell? Will he panic? Nothing happens. The house remains dead quiet. His reply comes the next evening. It is short, gruff, and perfectly damning. "Give it another few months past November. The interest is compounding. Don't rush it, Chloe. The money is safe. You'll thank us later." Safe. I stare at the word. My jaw locks. I screenshot it. I upload it. In September, the trap gets even tighter. I am sitting in my freezing Corolla after work when a voicemail notification pops up. It is Mom. I press play. The cabin of the car is silent except for the rattling heater and her voice. "Hey sweetie, just wanted to let you know I moved some of your savings into a different fund. Better rate. I'll explain when you get home. Love you." I replay it 3 times. The fake bright sweetness in her voice makes my stomach turn. "Your savings." She actually said the words out loud. I back the audio file up to my cloud. I email it to myself in 3 different locations. The digital trap is full. But I know a folder of screenshots isn't enough to survive a courtroom. I need a human witness. The next Sunday morning I drive 40 minutes out of town. I pass the old feed store and the rusted rail bridge. The sky is gray and heavy. I pull into Aunt Martha's gravel driveway. She opens the door before I even knock. She takes one look at my face, my rigid jaw, my dark exhausted eyes, and her shoulders instantly drop. She knows. "Kitchen," Martha says, her voice tight. "I just made coffee." We sit across from each other at her little formica table. She is 54, with sharp eyes that spent decades hunting down tax fraud for the county. She knows exactly what stolen money looks like. I don't ease into it. I don't sip the coffee. I lean forward and stare directly into her eyes. "Aunt Martha," I say, my voice barely above a whisper but hard as stone. "I need to ask you something, and I need the absolute truth. You heard Mom on the phone that Tuesday in June, didn't you? About Jason's down payment." Martha closes her eyes. Her hands tremble around her warm mug. The kitchen is so quiet I can hear the wall clock ticking off the seconds. Tick. Tick. "Your mother told me her exact words, Chloe," Martha whispers, opening her eyes. They are shining with tears. "She told me your rent money covered Jason's down payment. She said it kept Robert's business alive. I told her it wasn't right. I told her it was illegal." I swallow the dry feeling in my throat. And you believed she'd actually pay me back? No. Martha shakes her head slowly. A single tear escapes and runs down her wrinkled cheek. I didn't. Robert is drowning in debt. That money is gone, Chloe. I let the silence hang between us. I look at her shaking hands. Aunt Martha, I say softly, leaning closer, if I ever needed you to say that out loud to a judge, would you? She stares at me. She thinks about Susan, her sister. She thinks about blood, and 35 years of family holidays. The tension in the room is suffocating. Then she reaches across the table and grips my cold hand tight. Her grip is surprisingly strong. She's my sister, Martha says, her voice breaking but her eyes turning fierce. But you're my niece. And what they did to you is evil. Yes, I will tell the truth. I drive home through the gray morning with a second name in my corner. In late October, the air in Ohio turns sharp and bitter. The leaves die and fall, piling up dead and brown in the yard. 1 week before my final payment, I almost lose everything. I am in my bedroom, transferring the final printed emails into a thick manila folder. I had to print them at the public library so Dad wouldn't see the history on our home Wi-Fi network. The folder is heavy. 3 inches of pure documented betrayal. I am sliding it into my work bag when I hear the heavy thud of work boots on the stairs. Dad. He never comes upstairs this early. The floorboards groan under his weight. I freeze. The metal zipper of my bag is halfway closed. The brass doorknob turns. It clicks loudly, but it doesn't open. I had locked it. The handle rattles violently. Chloe. Dad barks through the thin wood. His voice isn't just loud, it is deeply offended. It is the voice of a man who demands total control. Why is this door locked? My heart slams against my ribs like a trapped bird. My breath catches. If he forces the door, if he searches my bag, he will find the folder. He will burn it, and I will be left with nothing. I force my panic down. I think of the lab. Exact movements. No mistakes. I shove the manila folder under my mattress and smooth the blanket in one fluid motion. I unlock the door and pull it open. Dad is standing there, his face red, his massive shoulders blocking the hallway light. You don't lock doors in my house, he growls, his eyes darting past me to scan the small room. He is looking for a reason to yell. He is looking for proof of disrespect. I was just changing, Dad, I say. My voice is perfectly flat. I look him right in the eye, offering him absolutely nothing. He glares at me for a long, terrible second. Then, he scoffs, shaking his head like I am a disappointment he simply has to tolerate. Keep it open, he mutters, and turns away. He thinks he won. He walks down the stairs, heavy and proud, having absolutely no idea that his ruin is hiding beneath my mattress. The next morning, I take the morning off from the lab. I drive to the county legal aid clinic. It is a gray brick building that smells like old floor wax and cheap coffee. I sit across a scratched metal desk from Marcus Vance. He is a paralegal in his late 30s. He looks exhausted, rubbing his eyes behind thick glasses. He probably expects a simple argument over a broken lease. I don't waste his time. I unzip my bag. I place the heavy manila folder on his desk. I have been paying my parents $2,500 a month for 4.5 years. I tell him quietly. They put it in writing that it was a savings account for a house. They spent it on my brother and my father's business debts. I have texts, emails, voicemails, and a sworn witness. Marcus sighs, a polite, tired sound. He opens the folder. I watch his face. For the first 30 seconds, his eyes track lazily over the top page. Then he stops. He reads it again. He flips to the next page. A screenshot. Then another. A transcript. His jaw physically drops. The boredom vanishes from his face, replaced by absolute stunning shock. Chloe, Marcus whispers, taking off his glasses. He looks at me like I am a ghost. This is astounding. You kept a perfect ledger. In Ohio, this isn't just a moral failing. This is a textbook civil case. It is called promissory estoppel and unjust enrichment. They made a clear financial promise. You relied on it. And they knowingly exploited that reliance. Can I sue them for the full $15,500? I ask. My voice doesn't shake. Marcus leans forward, resting his elbows on the desk. Here is where the law gets tricky. There is a concept called the duty to mitigate damages. If you find out someone is robbing you, you can't legally just let them keep robbing you for years to run up the bill. When exactly did you find out they were lying? June, I say instantly. 4.5 years in. I only paid for 5 more months to secure this written evidence without tipping them off. Marcus stares at me. deeply impressed by the cold calculation of it. That is legally defensible. You needed time to safely extract proof. But understand this, Chloe. Court is not a magic wand. They will argue you were a tenant. They will argue that at least some of that $2,500 was legitimate rent for the room, the water, and the food. I bought the groceries, I state flatly. I have the bank statements for that too. I believe you, Marcus says gently. But a judge will still look at fair market value for a room. You might not get the full $150,000 back, but you have a massive undeniable case for the rest. I'm connecting you with Sarah Jenkins. She is a contract disputes attorney. She is a shark. I walk out into the parking lot. The biting October wind hits my face, but I don't feel cold. I feel ready. November hits. Year 5. The final payment clears. 60 months, $150,000 gone from my hands. The chain is officially broken. That exact same week, my phone buzzes in my pocket while I am pouring a plaster mold at work. I wipe the white dust from my hands and look at the screen. It is a group text from Mom to the entire extended family. Christmas dinner at our place this year. Everyone's coming. 25 people confirmed. I'm so excited to have the whole family together. I read the text. The fake bright cheer makes me sick to my stomach. I sit in my car during my lunch break. I look at my calendar. 4 weeks until Christmas. I dial Sarah Jenkins, my new lawyer. We spend an hour preparing the final lawsuit. The printed legal binder is now thick and heavy. What if they deny everything when you confront them? Sarah asks through the phone. I can hear her tapping her pen. They are going to try to gaslight you, Chloe. Do you think they will? I ask, staring out my cracked window. In front of 25 people? Yes, Sarah smiles grimly on the other end of the line. And that is exactly what we want. Denial in front of 25 witnesses destroys their credibility completely. Every single person in that dining room becomes a potential deposition for our side. I hang up the phone. I look at the cracked dashboard of my freezing car. The trap is set. All I have to do is pull the trigger. Christmas Day, 3 p.m. The sky over Ohio is the color of bruised iron. It is a bitter, dry cold that makes the trees look brittle. I pull my rattling Corolla onto our street. The driveway is already packed. I have to park 2 houses down, wedging my car behind Jason's pristine leased SUV. I turn the engine off. The sudden silence in the freezing cabin rings in my ears. I look in the rearview mirror. I check my lipstick. I check my hair. I look at my eyes. They are steady. They belong to a stranger. I look at the passenger seat. The heavy unzipped leather bag sits there. Inside is the thick manila folder holding 5 years of my life, printed on cheap library paper. I pick up the bag. The strap digs into my shoulder. I walk toward the house, my breath pluming in the freezing air. With every step I imagine pouring the final layer of plaster over a mold. Set the trap. Seal the edges. Wait for it to harden. I open the front door. A wall of suffocating heat hits me. The house smells intensely of roasting turkey, cinnamon, and sharp pine. Mom's Spotify jazz playlist drifts through the air, completely drowned out by the overlapping voices of 25 people. Aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. They fill the hallway, the living room, the kitchen. Mom finds me before I can even take off my coat. She is wearing a dark red sweater, her hair perfectly curled. She pulls me into a suffocating tight hug. The smell of her floral perfume is overwhelming. My baby girl, you're here. Mom cries, squeezing me tight enough that it hurts. I'm here, Mom, I say smoothly. My voice does not shake. I let her go. I step into the living room. Jason gives me a casual nod from the sofa. He is holding a craft beer, balancing 2-year-old Mia on his knee. Emily is beside him, laughing at something an uncle just said. Dad is visible through the kitchen window, standing on the patio in his good flannel shirt, aggressively smoking a brisket and holding court with the older men. I play my part perfectly. For 2 hours, I am the invisible younger daughter, doing what she always does, keeping quiet and serving the family. I fold the heavy cloth napkins. I align the silverware perfectly parallel, exactly an inch from the edge of the table. I carry the sweet potato casserole from the oven, my hands protected by thick mitts, ignoring the blistering heat radiating through the fabric. Then comes the dinner. Getting 25 people seated in this old dining room is a tight, claustrophobic puzzle. The windows are steamed over from the body heat and the hot food. The air feels dense. I sit near the middle, the heavy leather bag resting right by my feet. As the plates are passed, the conversation turns. So Chloe, Aunt Susan leans across the table, her fork hovering over her ham. Still renting that little room upstairs, sweetie? You must be saving a fortune by now. Before I can even blink, Mom answers for me from the head of the table. She's saving up, Mom says smoothly, offering the table a bright, perfectly rehearsed smile. She's got a wonderful plan. Right, honey? I look at Mom. The micro-expression is there again, a tiny tightening around her mouth, a silent plea for me to play along. Yes, I say quietly, a perfect plan. 10 minutes later, Dad stands up. He picks up his heavy glass of cider. He takes his fork. Clink, clink, clink. The sharp metallic sound cuts through the laughter and chewing. The room quiets down. 25 faces turn toward the head of the table. Dad stands tall. He looks like a patriarch in a movie. He looks like a man who genuinely believes his own lies. Everybody, if I could have your attention. Dad starts, his voice rich and deep. He lets a comfortable, authoritative pause hang in the warm air. I just want to say how incredibly grateful I am today. For this family. For this beautiful house that we've kept warm all these years. For the food on this table. He looks down the long spread of food, then his eyes lock onto Jason. And I'm especially proud today of my son Jason. Dad says. The room offers a warm murmur of agreement. 30 years old. Beautiful home. Beautiful wife and daughter. You know, in this economy, it takes a real man to step up and build a foundation like that. He didn't wait around. He figured out how to build a life. Scattered clapping breaks out. Jason grins, looking down at his plate with false modesty. Dad isn't done. The room is a captive audience, and his ego demands an encore. He turns his gaze toward me. His face shifts, adopting a patronizing, sickeningly sympathetic smile. And Chloe, Dad says, his voice dropping to a softer, pitying register. You'll get there someday, sweetheart. Don't worry. Some people just take a little longer to launch off the runway. We're happy to keep a roof over your head until you figure it out. Soft, well-meaning laughter ripples through the aunts and uncles. It is a gentle, collective condescension. I look down at my plate. Slices of ham. A mound of mashed potatoes. I am sitting here breathing in the cinnamon and pine, listening to my father praise my brother for buying a house with my blood, my sweat, and my freezing winter drives. I am watching a thief demand applause for his generosity. The cold rage inside me finally snaps into perfect crystalline focus. The waiting is over. The plaster is set. I slowly slide my hand under the table. My fingers find the cold metal zipper of my bag. The applause for my brother slowly dies down, absorbed by the heavy winter coats piled on the sofa and the thick dining room rug. My hand is inside my bag. My fingers close around the thick, smooth paper of the manila folder. The metal teeth of the zipper bite into my wrist, but I don't care. I pull the folder out. It is heavy. It feels like a brick. I wait for the absolute perfect moment of silence. I wait until Aunt Susan is taking a sip of her water, until Jason is mid-smile, until Dad is settling back into his chair, basking in the glow of his own constructed reality. I stand up. My chair scrapes loudly against the hardwood. Dad, I say. My voice isn't loud, but it is entirely stripped of the soft, compliant tone I have used for the last 5 years. It carries perfectly across the long table. It is the voice of a technician calling out a critical error. Since we're all here, I continue, my eyes locking dead onto his, and I've officially hit the 5-year mark this month. I found a house I want to buy. I'd like to start the process of withdrawing from the savings account. The $150,000 you and Mom have been managing for me. The room stops. Forks freeze halfway to open mouths. Aunt Susan's glass stops inches from her lips. The Spotify jazz piano plinks out a cheerful, oblivious melody in the corner, highlighting the sudden suffocating vacuum of sound at the table. 25 people sit completely motionless. Dad stares at me. I watch his eyes. He doesn't look confused. He looks calculating. I can practically see the gears grinding behind his forehead as he searches for the right angle. Then, he chooses his weapon. He laughs. It is a loud, booming, perfectly dismissive laugh. It sounds so genuine it makes my stomach turn. Chloe, sweetheart, Dad chuckles, waving a large hand in the air like he is brushing away a fly. What savings account? That was rent. You lived in our house as an adult. You paid rent. Rent. The word lands on the table like a live grenade. The air pressure in the room seems to drop. You told me it was going entirely into savings, I say. My voice is dead calm. I am a glacier. You said I was building a down payment. Mom physically shrinks into her chair. Her face is ashen. She looks rapidly between the stunned faces of her sisters and brothers, then fixes a desperate, pleading look on me. Robert's right, she stammers, her voice thin and reedy. It was just rent, honey. You must have misunderstood us. Let's talk about this later, okay? Jason shifts uncomfortably. His face is flushing red. He puts his beer down. Come on, Chloe, Jason mutters, refusing to meet my eyes. Don't do this here. Don't embarrass the family in front of everybody. The family. I look at Jason. I look at the man who slept warmly while I drove a broken car through ice storms. I reach down and place the manila folder on the table, right next to the crystal dish of cranberry sauce. I open the cover. The bright white library paper glares under the dining room chandelier. This is a text from you, Mom, I say, pulling out the first sheet. I hold it up. I read it slowly, enunciating every single syllable. April 10th, Year 1. Everything's growing nicely. The bank restricts third-party views on high-yield joint accounts, but we've got it handled. Mom's face drains of all remaining color. Her mouth opens but no sound comes out. She looks like she has just been shoved out of an airplane. I pull out the second page. I turn to my father. Email from you, Dad, I say, my voice rising just a fraction, cutting through the stunned silence. November 5th, Year 2. I asked when I could access the funds. You wrote, give the savings another year or two. The interest is compounding. Don't rush it, Chloe. The money is safe. Dad's dismissive grin vanishes completely. The mask of the proud patriarch shatters, falling away to reveal the terrified, cornered narcissist underneath. His face turns a mottled, furious purple. The veins in his thick neck bulge against his flannel collar. I pull out the third page. And this is a transcript of a voicemail from Mom. I moved some of your savings into a different fund. I have the audio file backed up in 3 places. Where did you get those? Mom whispers. Tears instantly spring to her eyes, spilling over her mascara. She grasps the edge of the table. You spied on us? You collected things against us? You're tearing this family apart on Christmas. How could you? Dad doesn't cry. Dad explodes. He slams his massive fist onto the table. The plates rattle violently. A water glass tips over, spilling ice across the tablecloth. He doesn't laugh this time. He goes on the absolute offensive, playing the ultimate gaslighting card. You selfish brat. Dad roars, his voice vibrating the glass in the windows. You want the truth? Fine. My business was going under. We were going to lose this house. Jason needed a place for his baby. We are a family. Chloe. Family makes sacrifices. He points a thick, trembling finger right at my face. I put a roof over your head. I fed you. I used that money to save this family from ruin, and you're going to sit here with a folder like some sort of victim because I needed help. You arrogant, ungrateful little girl. The room collectively gasps. A cousin near the end of the table covers her mouth. Dad just confessed. In front of 25 people, he just admitted everything. He thought phrasing it as a family sacrifice would make him the tragic hero. He thought his volume would drown out the math. I do not flinch. I let the echo of his yelling fade into the terrified silence of the dining room. You didn't ask for my sacrifice, I say. My voice is dangerously soft, slicing right through his bluster. You stole it. You lied to my face for 5 years while I starved myself to pay you. You bought his house, and you kept your pride, and you made me pay the bill. You used her money for Jason's house. The voice comes from the kitchen doorway. It is Aunt Martha. She is holding a coffee pot, but her knuckles are white. Her voice is like absolute ice. Susan told me herself, Martha announces to the frozen room. $9 of Chloe's money, plus a high-interest loan, handed right to Jason. Emily, Jason's wife, drops her linen napkin. It falls onto her plate. She turns slowly to Jason. The look of horror and disgust on her face is devastating. Is that true? Emily asks. Her voice shakes. The $65,000 down payment. Jason, was that Chloe's money? Jason looks at the ceiling. He rubs the back of his neck, sweating profusely. It's complicated, Em. Dad helped us out. We didn't know exactly where. It's not complicated. Emily stands up. Her chair falls backward with a crash. She looks at her husband like she is seeing a total stranger. You let me think we earned that. You let me think we built our life. She reaches down, scoops a terrified little Mia into her arms and walks entirely away from the table. The silence that follows is apocalyptic. The illusion of the perfect family is dead on the floor. I look down at the folder. I slowly, methodically tap the pages against the table to align the edges, just like I am squaring off a file at the lab. I close the cover. I look at my parents. Dad's chest is heaving. His pride is entirely shattered, his secret exposed to every person he respects, his golden boy deeply shamed. Mom is sobbing quietly into her hands. Give me a repayment plan, I say. The final demand. In writing. Tonight. Or I take this to court. Dad glares at me. The hatred in his eyes is pure, unadulterated venom. You're not getting a dime. You lived here. You want to sue your own parents? Go ahead, Chloe. Sue me. Okay, I say. I pick up the folder. I slide it back into my leather bag. I zip it up. The sound of the metal teeth locking together is the loudest thing in the room. I look around the table at my aunts, my uncles, my grandmother. I am so sorry for ruining your Christmas dinner, I say politely. I turn around. I walk down the hallway. I open the heavy front door, step out into the freezing, bitter Ohio winter, and I don't cry. Wednesday morning, 8:30 a.m. The sky is bright and brutally cold. I walk up the wide concrete steps of the county courthouse. The wind whips my hair across my face, but I don't feel the chill. I push through the heavy glass doors. The building smells like floor wax, old paper, and nervous sweat. I meet Sarah Jenkins by the metal detectors. She takes my folder. We file the lawsuit. Promissory estoppel and unjust enrichment. The exact legal terms for a stolen life. 4 months later, we are in circuit court. Courtroom 4A. The courtroom has high ceilings and heavy oak benches that groan when you shift. I sit beside Sarah at the plaintiff's table. My hands are folded neatly in my lap. My parents sit 20 feet away at the defense table. They look incredibly small. Dad is wearing a suit that looks 10 years out of date, the collar tight around his thick neck. Mom won't even look in my direction, she just stares at her hands. They are sitting with a cheap, overworked lawyer they had to hire on a credit card. The trial is not a screaming match. It is a slow, methodical dissection. Sarah Jenkins is a shark in a tailored suit. She doesn't raise her voice. She just hands the judge the paper trail. She presents the printed texts, the fake balance screenshots, the time-stamped emails, and the audio files. Then Aunt Martha takes the stand and reads her sworn affidavit into the public record. My parents' lawyer stands up. He looks tired. He adjusts his tie and argues the only pathetic defense he has left. Your Honor, he says, his voice echoing weakly in the large room. The plaintiff lived in the home for 60 months as an adult. $2,500 is a perfectly reasonable expectation for room, board, utilities, and groceries in today's economy. The money was not a trust. It was rent. Sarah stands up smoothly. She doesn't even look at the opposing counsel. She looks directly at the judge. Your Honor, my client bought all the groceries for the household, which we have detailed bank statements to prove. More importantly, the law is clear. You cannot retroactively classify extracted funds as rent when you explicitly promised the plaintiff, in writing, over dozens of separate communications, that the money was being held in a trust for her future home purchase. That is the very definition of fraud. The judge is a stern man with silver hair and reading glasses perched on the edge of his nose. He looks down at the thick binder of evidence. He flips a page. Then he leans forward and looks directly at my father. Mr. Morrison, the judge's voice is deep and completely devoid of sympathy. Did you tell your daughter this was a savings account? Dad stands up. The loud, booming patriarch from Christmas dinner is entirely gone. He shifts on his feet. He clears his throat. It was a figure of speech, Your Honor. To encourage her to save. The judge looks at him like he is a bug on a windshield. A figure of speech, the judge repeats flatly. He shakes his head, picks up his pen, and makes a note. 2 weeks later, the ruling comes down. I am at the lab, wiping plaster dust from my station, when my phone vibrates in my pocket. It is Sarah. I step out into the quiet hallway. My heart is beating a frantic rhythm against my ribs. We won, Chloe, Sarah says. Her voice is crisp and triumphant. But grab a pen. Here is the legal breakdown. I lean against the cool plaster wall. Tell me. The judge entirely agreed with the promissory estoppel charge. He saw right through the rent defense. However, legally, he determined that since you did occupy a room and consume their electricity and water for 5 years, a fair market deduction must be applied to prevent complete unjust enrichment on your end. He assessed the value of your childhood bedroom at $500 a month. I hold my breath. $500 a month. Yes, Sarah confirms, which means of the $2,500 you paid, $500 legally constitutes rent. The remaining $2,000 a month was extracted under fraudulent pretenses. 60 months times $2,000. The judge has ordered a judgment in your favor for exactly $120,000. I slide down the wall until I am sitting on the hallway floor. 120,000. It isn't the full 150,000, but it is legally sound. It is exact. It is real money, protected by the court. Repayment is ordered at $2,000 a month for 60 months. Sarah continues, driving the final nail in. If they miss a single payment, the court instantly garnishes your father's business accounts and places a lien on their house. They are locked in, Chloe. I hang up the phone. I walk out of the clinic and get into my rattling Corolla. I grip the cracked steering wheel. I look at the passenger window that still only rolls up 2/3 of the way. And then, finally, I cry. It is not a cry of sadness. It is a massive, exhausting release. It is the feeling of a 5-year war finally ending. The plaster has cracked, and I am stepping out of the mold. Here is what happens when you lie to your daughter in a small town and lose in a public courtroom. The Whisper Network goes to work. People talk at the diner, at the hardware store, at the church. Dad's roofing business begins to bleed clients. People don't want to hire a contractor who steals from his own kid to pay his debts. 6 months later, Dad has to sell his massive, pristine Silverado work truck and downgrade to a rusted 10-year-old van. Mom loses her social standing. The bright, cheerful mask she wore around town slips. To make the strict court-ordered payments, she has to swallow her pride and go to work full-time at a local real estate office. At 56 years old, she is fetching coffee and filing papers just to keep the court from taking her home. Emily, completely disgusted by Jason's complicity and the shame of living in a stolen house, strips Jason of all financial control. She takes over the bank accounts and forces him onto a strict allowance until they can pay off their own debts. The golden boy loses his crown. Every first of the month, like clockwork, $2,000 hits my bank account. My real account. 3 months after the trial, I go to my mailbox. Inside is a small pale blue envelope. The handwriting is shaky. I open it in my kitchen. Dear Chloe, I saw the favoritism over the years. I saw what they did to you. What you did at that Christmas table took more courage than anything I've seen in my 82 years on this earth. Your grandfather always said you were the tough one. Not tough because you fight, but tough because you know exactly when to. I am so sorry I didn't speak up sooner. I am so proud of the woman you are. Love, Grandma. I trace the ink with my finger. I fold the letter and place it inside the manila folder. It is proof, and it is grace. 5 months post-trial, my phone rings on a Sunday afternoon. I don't recognize the number, but I answer it. Hello, Chloe. It is Dad. His voice doesn't boom anymore. It sounds thin. It sounds incredibly old and defeated. I don't hang up. I just listen to the silence on the line. I'm not calling to argue, he whispers. The gravel in his throat catches. I'm sorry, Chloe. I was drowning in debt. I panicked. I lied to myself that it was okay because we were family. I just wanted to be the man who provided. And I ruined everything. I listen to my father's voice crack. The rage inside me is completely gone. I don't yell. I don't demand a further apology. I just feel a deep, heavy pity for a man who destroyed his family to save his ego. The payments continue, Dad. I say softly. I love you, but I will never trust you with my life again. He takes a shaky breath. I know. The line clicks dead. I am 27 years old now. I don't live in a freezing house with thin walls. I live in a beautiful, bright one-bedroom apartment downtown. The heater works perfectly. The floors are warm. I have $120,000 coming back to me. Legally protected, safe and sound. I poured a new unbreakable foundation for my life, and this time my name is the only one on the deed. Some stories are difficult to pour into words. They require exact measurements of pain, betrayal, and ultimately truth. If you felt the weight of that truth today, and if you've ever had to crack the mold of your own life to start over, I invite you to stay connected. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories of quiet strength and survival. Share your own foundation-building moments in the comments below. And always remember, you do not have to set yourself on fire just to keep your family warm.